Yo, what's up everybody? We are going to embark on yet another build because I just don't know when to stop doing this stuff. Just love this hobby and thank you guys for tuning in. But before I tell you what I'm about to do, let me give you a really quick update on my animal room. So as you remember last time, this room was carpeted and I got all the carpet out, vacuumed it out, cleaned it up, leveled a couple areas, and now I'm working with someone to tile this floor. We got about 50% of it done. So in 2 or 3 days, we'll be done the whole thing. I decided against putting a laundry room sink over here, which is what I was initially gonna do. And instead, I am either gonna have a spigot like you would see outside of your house, like right on the wall, but probably have it in here under this sink in the bathroom, have a hose coiled in here so I can fill my tanks up when I need to. I'm still gonna have to get rid of the water somewhere else. But anyways, all we really need to do after the tile's done is build the racks and put the spigot in and then start moving the tanks in. So really excited. Room's really coming around, really excited about this. I needed to get that not nasty 1988 carpet out of here with all kinds of stains and looked like a chalk outline. I don't know if someone got whacked in here, but anyways, that stuff is all gonna be gone. And yeah, but let me show you what I'm doing right now because I think you guys are gonna trip you guys out. And yep, I bought another tank. This stand came in this huge box here. This is 150 gallons, so it's 72 and a half inches long by about 18 inches in depth, right? And then it's about 29 or 30 inches tall, something like that. This is 1/2 inch glass, by the way. This is super thick. So I love this. I'm really pumped. What I'm gonna do with this one is have it against that wall where I was gonna have the laundry room sink in my animal room. So this is, by the way, the biggest build I've ever done for myself. 150 gallons. I bought this stand. It wasn't cheap. It was pine by Aquarium, which I know is okay. It's decent. Just kind of like marine land. It's made out of pine. It's not particle board. So I trust the stand. I didn't feel like building a stand for this one. I only want to build racks at this point. I just don't have the time to build another stand for this. So just wanted to get something ready made. I paid for it through the nose, but whatever. The tank was super expensive as well, which is also why I am not going to drill this one. I just don't trust myself enough. So what I'm going to end up doing is having everything go over the top. I'm going to build a background. I don't know that I'm going to build the sides on this because it's going to be fully aquatic. So I really might want to look through the sides of the tank as opposed to doing kind of like what I do here, where I have all the sides done and like some of my terrariums and paludariums. You can see I do the sides. I don't know. I'm not really sure yet. But anyways, I'm going to be using a Fluval 407 to filter this. It can go up to 100. This is 150 gallon, I know, but I'm not going to have it filled all the way. I'll probably have it to here because I'm going to have some bog plants and driftwood up here with things kind of floating on the top. So anyhow, what am I going to put in here? Well, I can tell you what I'm not putting in here, and that's mud puppies, which is what I really, really wanted. Necturus maculosus. It's a fully aquatic salamander. They get over 1 foot long. They're really cool. I live in a state where they're extirpated, so I am not allowed to get them unless you have a scientific permit. Extirpated just means that they can't find them here, so they're considered endangered and thus illegal unless you have a scientific permit. I'm not going to go get a scientific permit to get one. I'd really like one, but I'm just not going to be able to do it. So I went and I found someone who breeds greater sirens. And if you don't know what a greater siren is, look it up. They're really cool animals. They can grow up to 3 feet long. They have 2 legs in the front, bushy gills, and they look like eels almost, except they're not. And they're just massive. They're really cool. They're predators. They're scavengers too. So they hunt food, but they also scavenge probably a little bit more. And yeah, I'm going to get 2 of them once I'm done setting this thing up. I think they're really cool animals. I think it'll really round out my collection nice. I'll probably add a couple fish and some small stuff like small things in there too. That would be native to where they live. And I just have to research that. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. But anyways, this is going to be my biggest build that I've done yet. So I'm really excited about it. I appreciate you guys tuning in to watch this one. It's going to be really interesting. Hopefully I don't screw it up. And let me show you how I do this and I'll walk you through the steps. Hey, so before we get into a lot of the build, one thing I wanted to do, and this takes place way before I even start building anything, is figuring out all the supplies you need. So for this 150 gallon, it's going to be fully aquatic, but I'm going to need a whole bunch of stuff. It's a big tank. I mean, it's surprisingly a lot of things that you need, from everything from the great stuff, spray foam, if you're going to use that, to driftwood, to rocks, to the egg crate to help the foam adhere better to hold your hardscape elements into place. Tons of silicone razor scrapers, clamps, zip ties. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. So I'm just going to kind of walk through a couple of the things really First thing is always have a bunch of silicone. I use GE Silicone 1. I've used like GE other silicones too before, but I use this one. It's pretty cheap. It's like $5 a tube. Get it at Home Depot. You can order it online. Doesn't really matter. I'm guessing for this build, I'm going to have to use at least 3 of these. So I probably have enough, but that's one thing that you're definitely going to need to make sure that the egg crate sticks to the glass. So another thing you're going to need a ton of, when I mean a ton, I mean a lot, is this great stuff, Gaps and Cracks, or better yet, Pond and Stone. Gaps and Cracks is really cheap, it's $4 or $5, but it's not as good in the water as Pond and Stone. I think this stuff is made more for water, and it's black, so it just kind of blends better with things. It doesn't have a weird yellow look if you forget to cover some of it up. So I've actually ordered 5 bottles of this stuff, or cans, excuse me, for this build. But these are about $4 or $5 a can for this. You can use these. I usually paint these with Quikrete and Dry Lock. I'll show you in a minute. I saw some people doing that for years and started adopting it a little while ago, and I like it. I don't do it for my entire hardscape, but I'll show you those too because I might use some of that. Just really quick here, this is I mentioned the Dry Lock. You want to use the original gray, and then here's some of the colors of Quikrete. This stuff, these are about $7. This is about $25 each, so these are $7 each. Charcoal, don't use too much of that because it can make it basically look black. Buff is a good one to mix. Brown's okay. But you just kind of play around with the colors when you're painting the foam. Remember, you got to do that after you've carved it. Cuts of PVC pipe, $3 to $4 a piece to hide the filter tubes. You're going to also need some gloves. This is one of the most important things, about $20 a box for some nitrile gloves. You definitely don't want to get great stuff on your hand or silicone. It's impossible to get off. You need to get this stuff, which is the egg crate light diffuser. These are about $16 a piece, $5 a piece for a 100-piece bag of zip ties. You're going to need spring clamps. Those are $1 a piece. Those are pretty cheap. And then these little razor blades to help carve, $3 or $4 a piece. These things are all pretty helpful and cheap. And then, sometimes when I make my top, sometimes I use glass or acrylic, but a lot of times I use these window screen frames and mesh to get circulation. And then I use this, which is the water wicking mesh material for moss to grow on. Which I'll probably use at the top of this scape if there's a little bit of terrestrial moss. As you can see, there's a lot of materials, and I didn't even get into the plumbing supplies or all the tons of packages of Gorilla Glue and super glue that I use to glue things. I mean, in terms of the plumbing, you got vinyl hoses. Those are like $10 a piece for 10 feet to 3/4 inch. That's at Home Depot. You got barbed elbow hoses. You've got hose clamps. You've got bulkheads, strainers, all these other things that you got to use to plumb a tank. This time I'm really going to try to use the plumbing supplies that come with the filter. So remember, I'm using a Fluval 407, and I didn't think that was probably enough. So I went out and I got a Fluval FX4 too. So definitely a little overkill. I'm going to run both. If it's overkill, I'll probably just run the FX4, but there's only 383 gallon per hour flow rate on the 407, and that's just not enough for a 150 gallon tank. You're supposed to have 4 to 5 times every gallon tank you have, or every gallon of water, you're supposed to have 4 to 5 times in the gallon per hour. So I'm just needed to get something else. So we'll see. But what this also doesn't include is all of the hardscape materials. The rocks I get mainly outside, so I don't spend money on those. But the substrate, I'm going to have to buy a ton of sand because I don't want any impaction risk with gravel for them because they inhale their food. And rocks. Luckily, I get these kinds of rocks that you see, these big rocks. I can find those. I have property that has them, so I'm lucky to get it. I own it. So, but the driftwood was super expensive, I won't lie. I got over 100 pounds of driftwood. I mean, that's expensive. I spent hundreds of dollars of just in driftwood for this tank, which is all just sitting soaking in a tub right now. I'm going to leave it in there for at least a week. I boiled some of it, but some of the pieces are way too big to boil, so they're just going to sit in there until I can get most of the tannins out, and just trying to minimize the water changes. So just wanted to give you guys a sense for what really goes into this, because it's not like you could just throw. People ask me sometimes, they're like, hey, how much is it to like build a tank like this? And I'm like, for me to build it for you, because it takes me a long time to build these. I mean, I have another job, right? This isn't my job. I love this. I wish it was. If enough of you guys subscribe to me, I can make this my job, and I would love to just make tanks and do that for my career, but you know, that's just the pipe dream right now. So it takes a ton of time, and it's a lot, and it's expensive. You know, for elaborate tanks, it's expensive. There's a lot of things that you need. Some people try to do it cheaper, and I commend them. You know, they're much more creative than I am, but I just know what I need to make this stuff, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of what goes into this. So we will start here shortly, and I will show you the next steps in this. So the first step here is to cut pieces of A-Crate light diffuser and to silicone them onto the bottom of the aquarium, and this is only to redistribute the weight. So what I was thinking of doing is using these pieces of insulation foam and siliconing down some A-Crate light diffuser, and then also siliconing down the PVC pipes. This is to hide all of the plumbing. As you can see, that's the intake there, and then the outtake would be up here. I am regretting a little bit not drilling this just because this is a huge pain right now. Yeah, you know, I like the way that the expanding foam adheres to the A-Crate light diffuser versus the foam, so I'm going to try this. So another thing that I didn't talk about was before even building the background, I need to get all of the tannins out of the driftwood. I need to disinfect the driftwood. I mean, this is just 2 pieces of small Malaysian driftwood in here, and you can kind of see them. They've been here for about 45 minutes. I've got 2 pots going here, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to show you. I've got another 4 big pieces in this laundry room sink. This is all boiling water. You can kind of see some of the steam coming off it, or it was boiling water. And then I have 3 super big pieces upstairs in a bathtub. I had a little bit of Clorox in there just to disinfect them. I will tell you that I have already soaked all of this wood for 7 days in bathtubs. Every other day I'll get the water out of the bathtub, fill it up with more hot water, get more tannins out. This is just the end here. I can't really start in the background because I don't know what pieces I want to foam into the background. So, and I want to make sure that these are ready to go. So I haven't even really been able to start on the background, unfortunately. But there's about 125, 150 pounds of driftwood that are going into this tank. I mean, these are big pieces. So I just wanted to make sure that I made that clear that, you know, this is the process I go through. It's annoying. It takes a long time. And despite everything I've done, I probably still will have some yellow, nasty tea-colored water and probably have to do a couple water changes. So I'm just essentially trying to mitigate the amount of water changes I'm going to have to end up doing, which is why I am doing this right now. It gets a lot of the tannins out, plus it disinfects the wood. So anyways, just wanted to bring that to your attention. What I wanted to talk about before we get into actually making a background and scaping this thing is to have a good idea of the layout of the hardscape pieces, particularly this Malaysian driftwood. These are big pieces. You're talking a foot and a half on the small end, weighing 20, 25 pounds, up to about 2.5 to 3 feet for the biggest pieces. As you can see here, I'm just using this open fireplace opening to try to put things together like tree trunks and fit pieces together. It's really like Tetris, if you remember that game. It's just pieces of a puzzle, making it, you know, trying to essentially have the most natural looking formation you can with the wood. So I have all kinds of pieces. I have big rocks. I already kind of figured out the rocks, and that's not as important. But the driftwood for me is a bigger piece of this, and this is what's really taking me the longest. I've really been kind of challenged on this one because once you get this stuff in, it's going to be impossible to get it out and with a lot of effort, and especially with this big piece that you see here. Just want to make sure everything's in the right place. This piece weighs almost 70 pounds. It's super heavy, and it's almost 3 feet. It's a big piece, and I really want to make sure that I'm putting these in the right places that are going to look natural. So this is a big part of doing this. Hey kids, so as you can probably tell, this is going to be a much longer video build DIY than usual. This is just the biggest tank I've ever worked on. So what I've done here is I have 3 pieces of foam, of insulation foam that I got from Home Depot. I've cut them so it all kind of fits in the back of the aquarium. And I've taken the A-Crate light diffuser that I typically use, that I silicone to the glass, and I've siliconed it to this because I really want this foam that's in these cans, this great stuff pond and stone, and then the gaps and cracks, to be able to adhere to this plastic. So I'm gonna let this stuff dry, and then I'm gonna start foaming everything. Not in one piece, but in thirds. And I'm gonna make sure that they all fit together before I put anything in. I'm gonna foam in some of the slate rocks that I have. I'm also gonna paint and do some dry lock. I don't think I'm gonna be able to foam too much of this wood in. I think it's just too heavy, and I'm concerned that the wood will drag down. It'll be difficult essentially to silicone the foam pieces to the glass of the aquarium. So I'm gonna let this stuff dry, and then I'm gonna start to foam, but this is what it's essentially gonna look like. I struggled, I really did, because I wanted to drill it, and I've drilled almost every one of my aquariums, and I know the thicker the glass, the easier it is, but I just don't want to drill this one in case I want to change it into something else one day. So I am gonna do it like this, and let's get ready to start the foaming, I guess, here as soon as this dries. All right, so what we've got here are the pieces. I didn't carve them yet, but what I did carve is around the sides here to try to put them all together, because this is what I was worried about. This is what I don't want to deal with. This side's not too bad. There's a little bit of a gap here, but if I push it together, it's not too bad. So this one matches up pretty nicely. This one looks like it's more going to be annoying. So what's going to probably have to happen is when I put these into the aquarium, I'm probably going to have to put a little bit of foam in there and then just kind of paint over it, which I really didn't want to do, but I don't really have a choice. Another thing that I forgot to do, can't believe it, is to put in another, I was going to put in another small tube like this, another tube so I could have my airline tubes for air stones, because I really want this to be well aerated. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm still going to be able to fit the intakes plus little airline tubes down here, so I'm not too worried about it. I think it'll be okay. But I'm actually going to work on carving this now with the drill bit, the wire brush drill bit, and by hand. So just using like these types of things. I buy a bunch of these for each one. I probably have some. Yeah, here we go. I'll show you. I always buy a bunch of these from like Home Depot. And you know, you just start to carve. So I'm going to start, because this one is completely done. These, it's been about 4 hours. These are not. These still are a little, I mean, it sounds like it's done, but it can still press it in a little bit. So, so what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to start carving these things, have a shop vac on hand. It gets really messy. And yeah, and I will show you what it looks like when I'm done carving. So what I did was I used a wire brush drill bit, and I went through this and I carved the heck out of this thing. And this is the result when you're done. I vacuumed everything up. Took me about 30 minutes to vacuum, just to vacuum to get all the little pieces up from the foam. But as you can see, I may have missed 1 or 2 tiny little 1/4 inch spots, but for the most part, the dry lock and the paint will adhere. You know, there's a spot right there, just you can kind of pull it off. But so yeah, so ready to dry lock and paint. But before I do that, I'm actually going to put on the water wicking mesh. As you can see, I put on the water wicking mesh in a couple spots where I want. All this crap is just Gorilla Glue. It's just kind of curing. It looks like garbage right now, but not a big deal. There's going to be things planted over it. It's still sticky a little bit. So just put some spots where I think I'm going to want some moss, like Java moss and things like that, underwater moss that'll grow on here. So this stuff is still curing. It's, you know, it's actually pretty dry at this point. So I think I'm going to start painting. But I wanted to get this stuff on first because there's no point in painting underneath there and then putting the stuff on top of it. So just give myself a little less work to do. But yeah, so I'm going to start here with the dry lock and the Quikrete. I have a couple of the colors. I'm going to keep it the same slate kind of color like I usually do on most of my builds, and we'll see how it comes out. So I've added the first layer of dry lock and some charcoal Quikrete. As you can see, I just put it everywhere just to get a layer down, a base layer to get rid of the foam, you know, make sure everything was dry locked. And I'm going to start adding accents once it dries. So it's not going to look like this for long, but I'm going to add the highlights now. So I've started to lighten up the tips of, you know, the high points with this kind of like light brown. I'm trying to make the foam look a little more realistic. I kind of like the contrast with the slate in. I almost think I didn't need to use the slate at all, but I think it's turning out all right. I'm not done yet on the painting, but as you can see, I've used several colors. One looks like puke, the other one looks like light brown, and then I used the charcoal by itself, the Quikrete charcoal. But I think when it dries, it'll look pretty nice. I have some rocks that are red that came from a stream in the mountains that I want to use in addition to some gray rocks. So I'm going to kind of mix it up a little bit. So kind of seems odd now, but it'll look good when it's done. Hey everybody, so got one piece of the background siliconed in. As you can see, I'm using some wood as braces. I have a dumbbell down there, 10-pound dumbbell holding it up. It's like the right size so it doesn't slip off the glass. What I've noticed is there's about a little less than a 1/4 inch in that corner of space. I couldn't get this thing completely flush, so I'm gonna have to foam that in, and I'm gonna have to wedge these all together pretty tightly. It's gonna be a tight fit, but I'm gonna also, anywhere where there's a gap, I'm gonna also have to foam it with some black expanding foam. One, it'll help secure it, and two, it'll cover up any gaps, which I don't want. Another thing is in some of the tubes, I've put some foam in, some of this insulation foam, just so animals can't swarm out. In this one, that's completely stuffed down there where the intake is, so nothing can really get through that. Yeah, so I just need to make sure that I get all the, my goal today is to really essentially silicone in the backgrounds and make sure they stick, and then just kind of foam it and let it kind of all cure overnight. So, once that's done, that's most of this. I mean, then I just have to kind of secure in the driftwood and some rocks on the bottom, and that's really it. So just kind of getting things ready. And just remember, that's on this side I have a Fluval FX4, which is a monster filter. This is, again, it's a 150-gallon tank. And on this side I have a Fluval 407, which is still a pretty, I think it's 383 gallons per hour, and this one's like 5 something. So this will be a clean tank, to put it lightly. But anyways, I will show you once I get this stuff up, and we can look at the background together with the foam in. So at this point, I got the background siliconed in. I foamed in between. You can kind of see, I painted it, but you can kind of still see some of these areas where the foam is, but it looks pretty cohesive. I'm gonna have a lot of this wood covering things up anyways. There's gonna be plants everywhere. I kind of put this structure together. I like it. It looks kind of like roots and tree stumps and things like that, especially these pieces here. I really like the way that looks. I like this one. I don't really know if that goes right there, but I'll figure it out. Not really sure where that goes either, but you kind of have to it's like puzzle pieces, because you know the driftwood, these are all cut, so there's flat pieces that don't look natural that you kind of have to figure out. But really like this. I'm going to be putting all these rocks in as well. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a red hue to my background. It's like a dark brown red that I kind of created the color to match some of these rocks, like that one, and especially those, which all came out of mountain streams in Pennsylvania, which is, I think, gonna look really good. Don't mind this garbage right now, like this stuff, that's just the material that the moss will grow on. Unfortunately, the Gorilla Glue came through, but I have so many plants, I'm gonna plant over everything in here. So this looks a little unnatural to me, these little pieces of driftwood to hide the outtakes. As you can see, there's a smaller one there for the Fluval 407. Remember, I'm using a Fluval 407 here, and then on this side, I'm using a Fluval FX4. So, you know, if you don't know what an FX4 is, that's an FX4. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna foam some of these pieces in and get a couple of them secure so it doesn't fall down. I'm not gonna foam every piece in, I don't think it needs to be. These are, by the way, way too big to foam into the background. You can foam against the background, but it would pull it off the glass. I mean, some of these weigh 40, 50 pounds, so it's just too much weight. So anyways, let's get these foamed in and see how it looks. As you can see, I took some of the wood out and I have put in some of this mixture of Fluval stratum and Seachem fluorite, which is rinsed, because otherwise you'll have like a maroon colored, this is the red stuff, fluorite red. I use this mainly for planting stuff. Sand's okay. The sand is over it on this side. Mainly it's just Fluval stratum on this side underneath, which is totally fine. If I plant things here, I'm pretty sure it'll still grow. But I'm waiting on the sand. I have 100 pounds of sand on the way. None of the local fish stores had any, so I had to order some online. Apparently it came from Canada. So it's only sitting like 10 miles away from where I am, but I don't think I'm gonna get it for a few days. According to FedEx, which sucks and it is annoying, so because I can't really do anything. I need to basically backfill this whole area with sand so I can put the driftwood in. What I might try to do is just secure the driftwood in and just kind of shove the sand back there. The other thing I did is I have these air stones, as you can see. They're going to be buried, and I have another one over here. You can't even see it, but yeah. So you know, it'll be nice and aerated. There's going to be some really cool, this is dirty, I have to clean it off from dumping some of the substrate in, but yes, rock formations over here. I have a bunch of other stuff I still need to put in, a lot more wood, more rocks, and yeah, I mean, the other thing is, this is the intake. I put little boulders around it, like little river stones, I guess you could call them. So yeah, it's really coming along nicely. I'll show you guys the plants here now too. So here are the plants, right? We've got all kinds of stuff, everything from hornwort, dwarf sage, and Anubias. I think I've got Christmas moss, Java moss, maybe some peacock moss. All of this stuff came from Dustin's fish tanks. I get all my aquatic plants from them. They do a great job. I can't say it enough. I mean, they're the only plants I really get that just don't wither away and die when I put them in the aquariums. The stuff that you buy at some of the big box pet stores typically will die, and then maybe they'll come back. But for the most part, I don't have them come back. And so I just order from Dustin's fish tanks. I'm here on the East Coast. I think they're in Kentucky, but I really can't speak enough for the quality of the plants and the service that I get from them. This is certainly not a plug for them. It's just giving credit where credit's due. So as you can see too, I also have some narrate snails. I think I have about 30 in here. I have 30 narrate snails that I'm going to use as part of the cleanup crew. I'm probably going to end up getting some shrimp, maybe some minnows even, but definitely some shrimp, some ghost shrimp, maybe some cherry shrimp to go in there. Probably ghost shrimp because they're native. I know the narrate snails are not native to where the greater sirens live, but they're just really good algae eaters, and that's kind of what I need. And all these plants aren't native either. Some of them are, like hornwort is, but a lot of these other plants are not. But I want to have a heavily planted tank for these guys, and so sometimes I do deviate with the plants just because it's really difficult to find a lot of local aquatic plants to use that are going to be safe. So anyhow, yeah, I'm pretty excited. Just really waiting on that sand. let's talk lids to the tank. That's something I didn't get into. Just finished building these. I did not film it because I've done this before in a video, but I'll tell you what it is. Basically, these are window screen frames, window screen mesh. It's really soft. And then there's corners. Can't see them. They're about 1.5 inches, and they just fit in. They're like little L's. It goes this way and it goes this way, and they fit in. It's really easy. And then there's spline. And spline is this black rubber stuff that goes in and holds the screen in. So initially what I was going to do was make acrylic lids, and I tried drilling one to allow for the hoses from the filter to come in, and it just cracked, and it kind of fit awkwardly, and it was sharp. And I'm afraid these animals are known to put their head up to kind of figure out their boundaries. And you know, this is soft, but the lid had some cracks in it, and it was a little jagged, and I didn't want them to get cut and hurt. So I'm using this. The only problem is that this doesn't cover every inch. There's about 1 inch, 1.5 inches of a gap on the two sides. This one is completely snug in the middle. It's fine, but these two where I have the filters on the either sides are not. So I'm gonna have to get some filter mat or something to put up there to wedge in, or a sponge, just something where they can't come. I don't want to use expanding foam because I don't want the lid to be stuck on, but I got to put something up there because these animals are known to be escape artists, and I don't want to deal with that. But I've filmed this before, so again, I didn't film it, but what you'll need is some scissors to cut the screen. The mesh, the window screen mesh. You'll need a spline, which is that spline roller, excuse me, which is that yellow thing right there. Looks like a pizza cutter. You'll need these frames that you can get from Home Depot or any other home improvement store. The corners, again, these little plastic corners. You'll need the spline, which is this black stuff. And then you'll need a tape measure and a hacksaw to cut. Really easy, doesn't take long. But I wanted to address it because I am not using lids or anything that came with it. These were totally DIY. So anyways, that's it. Dropped all the substrate in, didn't film it. It was just pretty boring, me standing on a ladder, dropping in sand, and then brushing it with a brush. Filled in a lot of the spots that I wanted to. Added these red rocks, which complement the brownish red hues in part of the background. It's difficult to see on the camera, but there are some in there. Put some other rocks in for the hardscaping elements here and there. I had some more rocks I wanted to put in, but I feel like there's so much already to this hardscape. I just kind of want to leave it the way it is. I like it. I like that the wood kind of stands out a little bit from the background. It's not too much of one color. I think the wood will darken over time too, so it'll look a little bit better. Overall, I'm really liking this. I just really need to plant it at this point. I've got about 1.5 inches of sand. I literally bought way too much sand. I have another extra 50-pound bag of sand I didn't even end up using. There's some fluorite and Seachem, Seachem fluorite and fluval stratum beneath the sand, as you can see there. So really, at this point, just need to plant it and get the filters going and get it going. So I'm gonna film myself planting it right now so you guys can see. All right, so got the moss in, got the plants planted, and then I filled it up, which took forever because I didn't have a hose. I could have used the Fluval FX4, but I didn't know I could do that. So you live and you learn. But anyways, got it planted. This is actually a week after the last video. That's how long it took to clear this up. Got the air stones strategically placed so the outtake of the filter kind of gets the bubbles all over. You can see all the moss all over the walls, really thick anubias, a lot of dwarf sage, a bunch of other plants. I'm hoping that these greater sirens don't tear everything up. Yeah, I mean, I don't love this scape, but I really like it. It's a little different. You see, I have about 30 nerite snails in there, which will probably all get eaten at some point, hopefully not. So the nerites are going to town. The plants are doing well, so far. And the moss seems to be sticking where I want it to. So I really like the way it looks. Sorry for the glare. You can see some other paludariums and stuff in the background, so apologize for that. Yeah, I mean, the driftwood is not leaking any tannins, which is great. So I soaked it long enough and boiled it long enough. And yeah, this is it. I mean, it's pretty cool. All these. So by the way, I have 10 Amano shrimp and about 20 ghost shrimp that I'm about to put in as well. So I'll show you what, I'll release them here in a second, but really liking this tank, getting cycled up for the sirens. I should be getting them soon, and we'll be doing a new video for that. All right, so as you can see, there's a ghost shrimp back there, just kind of hanging out on the driftwood, really kind of taking to it. There's a lot of hiding places in here, which is great for these shrimp, because the animals are going to, probably go after them at some point, once I eventually put them in. So, like I said, there's some Amanos and some ghost shrimp. They're hard to even tell apart. There's a ghost shrimp right there, and then there's an Amano in front of it. I think you see it on the right. So you can kind of tell the difference. The Amanos have a darker, they're a little more low to the ground. They don't have the hump in their back, but they're really good algae eaters. And so yeah, I'm going to leave these guys in here for a while, get acclimated before I put any animals in. Probably put some algae wafers in just so I have something to eat. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys tuning in for this, and I will be making another video when I release the animals in once I get them. And so thank you, and appreciate the support for the channel.